So I have essentially two quick agenda items that I've added just so that we can publicize a couple of things that we're planning to do. The first one is we want to actually change the command line model of Galley, and instead of having this explosion of command lines for many things that Galley is today doing, we're gonna add a settings file. So essentially, the command line is going to have only two sets of things. One, the command line flag saying that the settings file flag saying that this is the settings files to use, and then the logging options. And then in the settings file, we're going to have the rest of the flags that we have today to control probing, validation settings, processing related settings, all of that, right? So I created a proto-based settings file model here. And I can publicize it a bit more. So there's a currently work in progress version of this out for review, but it's not complete. It's just more like for demo purposes. But the idea is we will have, this is like almost one-to-one mapping of command line arguments to some settings. And then in file form, it's going to look something like this. So you'll have general, you have introspection, which is Control Z, liveness, probe, latest settings, or processing is like the standard, like the config processing, the main config processing service settings. We're going to have settings for different sources. So for example, this shows Kubernetes as the source. We can have the file system source here. And there's this is the validation settings. This will be the file that you would need to write and just put someplace. And then you can just point Galley to that and it will read all of it and then work off that. So the default settings will be geared towards the deployment case. Like, ideally the Kubernetes deployment we have is not going to have this file. All of the defaults will just work. Any questions, comments, anything you guys see as problematic? So I can quickly show the format again. So it's essentially a bunch of stanzas. There's the general stanza, there's the validation-related stanza, the processing-related stanza, and then the interesting part is going to be around here. We are going to have source-related settings, Kubernetes file system. We can even have an MCP-based one. The server-related settings, and then we are going to have some dial-out settings that's going to come with the next version of MCP, where we can actually dial out to config clients. So this kind of captures that a bit. Hold on, it's easier to scroll for me here. So the idea is we're going to have, hold on, where's the sync one? Okay, I think I removed it. It's in the other PR I had. But we are going to have essentially something like something similar to this for syncs, where we may actually have an auth provider and then auth settings. So this is the second line item that I want to bring to attention. So especially for dial-out purposes, for external integration, we will need to provide some sort of auth model that needs to be a bit extensible. And I think I'm going to change the word from plugin to a provider here. But the plan is going to be, or the current proposed plan is, have different named auth providers here. It can be insecure, it can be MTLS, or it can be anything else. That way we can configure Galley to be able to talk to different things. That's pretty much it. I just want to make sure that this, everybody's on, every of these changes. And if you have any questions or concerns, let us know, because we are going to go ahead with this plan and just land this soon.
So I have a question. Sorry, I'm very new to this, so it
Sure.
might be pretty dumb question. So the auth mode you were just talking about, do you know that in the Helm flag, we also have a control plane security flag? I can't remember the exact flag. Do we have plan to connect these two together so that if I'm specifying Helm, I'm not using control plane security, then I wouldn't use mutual TLS in Gaily to talk to other components?
That's what we do today.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
if
great.
it took that way, we would update it accordingly.
Okay.
So the implication of that is, if you disable control plane security, you will not, well, not only will you not have a secure connection between Pilot and Proxy, you will not have a secure connection between Galley and Pilot.
Right, exactly. Which is probably what a user wanted. I mean, if they want to troubleshooting or just experimental, is still not in a production environment. Yeah.
And also, if you don't have Citadel, because you don't think you need secure traffic between your services, you also won't have secure traffic between your control plane.
Okay.
So in minimal Istio,
yes,
right, like I don't care about MTLS, but I do care that Pilot is authenticating to its configuration source. You can't have both. If you want secure communication between your services, including the control plane in Istio, you need Citadel, or the equivalent functionality.
So let's just be clear about this, right? So the individual components themselves are flexible enough to accommodate the various, like the full matrix, right? So you can have secure communication all around, insecure, or secure between Galley and Pilot, but insecure otherwise.
Right, but effectively, the way things are set up today, if you say I turn off, if Citadel isn't there effectively, if Citadel isn't present in your cluster, and it's not provisioning certs or provisioning credentials, not only do you not have secure traffic between your services, you don't have secure traffic between your control plane components.
Right. So,
which is probably understandable. So in the minimum profile, when Citadel is not there, people probably wouldn't be expecting the control plane components have secure communication.
It is in 1.0. Pilot is secure to Kubernetes.
So, sorry to interrupt. Just going back to what Jason, you mentioned. So if I don't have Citadel in my cluster, today I would still be able, over MCP, I would still be able to secure my communication between the server and the client, though, correct?
So to Oz's point, you can make this work. So in your use case, if you're providing credentials through some other means, there's nothing inherently.
the components are not inherently tied to Citadel.
They're not coupled to Citadel, but to Lynn's point, when you flip, when we're talking about Helm flags and then the out-of-the-box Istio install on Kubernetes, if Citadel isn't present, we're relying on Citadel to provision certs. So if Citadel isn't present, we don't have certs, and you're kind of on your own. Either you're running in an insecure mode, or you're going to go and provision certs in a special, in another way.
Totally. Yeah.
So I guess, well, the thing is, it's not just provision certs, because if it's just provision certs, we could provision certs when creating the minimum profile of Istio. I guess it's also about management of the certs, the rotation, which is harder to do for ourselves.
At that point, you say, well, I don't want Citadel, but I want something to provision and manage certs and rotate them, and that's Citadel.
So. Right. Why would you redo it?
Yeah. And that's the thought was that's the best. That's what we want to recommend anyway. We want to encourage people to secure the traffic as much as possible. So this is a case where we say you should do this. It's possible to run in an insecure mode, but we're going to encourage people to do the right thing with best practices.
So that means Gaily will always require Citadel in the minimum profile then?
No, you can run Galley without Citadel.
It will just be in an insecure mode.
Right, but it would be in secure mode, and I think you guys said we actually have a secure mode between Pilot and the Kubernetes API server in one with the minimum profile.
Yeah. Yes. If you want secure control plane, you want certificates managed automatically for you. You need Citadel.
Okay, so maybe is it worth to have in the minimum profile to have a secure control plane flag for the user so that they could pick?
Then it wouldn't be minimal.
Right, exactly.
I
That's
see your-
my
I see your
point. You
point.
almost bring everything in except the mixer, really.
I see your point, but at some point, it's what's the goal of minimal? Is it, do you want to have a single pod running in the cluster? Do you want it to be like Minikube, where it's very lightweight for smaller deployments? There might be other ways to address that while keeping all the functional control plane components present for secure communication.
Yeah, the goal we had was to provide a profile that could provide like traffic shifting, traffic control, traffic connecting, load balancer behavior.
Right. So you can do that if you run Galleon in insecure mode, or run the control plane in an insecure mode. It's just going to be insecure.
Right, it's just going to be insecure. Okay, so I think we agree with that. So you could run Gaily without Citadel, it's just going to be insecure, which could just be over minimum profile. And if people want more secure, then they have to add options on top of minimum profile or standard with a generic configuration and tweak from there.
Right, and I think
Okay.
when we talked with the security group, their thought was, we want to encourage people to follow best practices, and that is securing their traffic when possible. And that's not always the case with surface-to-surface traffic for a variety of reasons, but as a starting point with your control plane, you want to have that infrastructure in place. So you can lock down your control plane, and then over time, you can start securing your surface-to-surface traffic as well. And if we invest a lot of time making an alternate means, we're not really pushing people in that best practice, towards that best practice.
Right, it's definitely a dilemma here too. Yeah, then people could ask, like your question you ask, why are we having minimum profile when you bring in almost everything?
Right. Well, and I'd say this might be a better topic to discuss in environments, or I don't know, maybe here. But if the goal for the minimum profile is to have a Minikube-like experience, the Constant has something called, it's like mini Istio. It's not called that though. There's another name for it. But essentially, it's bundling all the components in a single blob or into a single pod. If the goal is to have a Minikube-like experience, that might be another route for a minimum profile to get people started in very small kind of development toy clusters while retaining all of the functionality that we have in a larger Istio install.
Right, I guess it could be every single control plane components as a container and maybe put them all together within a single pod.
There's probably a variety of ways to carve it up, but if the motivation is you want a small thing running in your small Minikube install, that would be more flexible. And then you can just light up features as you need them, and people don't care about turning on and off control plane components.
Yeah. I guess the initial, when we created it, we actually envision its use beyond just Minikube. People can actually use it in production if they wish to, which was the case, as long as they don't care about secure their traffic, because their traffic might be already secured within that particular cluster.
So with switch to MCP, we're essentially losing the innate security that the API server provides for config transformation, config transfer, right? So that's really the crux of the problem. when we have MCP, when we don't have MCPs in the system, everybody's listening to Kubernetes. This is like all secure by default. So you can have a profile that says, oh, I want minimal things. I have my configuration just for say pilot-based scenarios. I don't need Citadel. That works fine. But with MCP, you need to provide some measure of security, right? So some measure of control plane security, and putting things together in a control, like a container or a pod, as you guys mentioned, I think kind of alleviates that. You can actually even use Unix sockets or things like that to sidestep the problem. So you can actually run MCP in a closed way so that it doesn't hit the network, right? So you actually sidestep the control plane security problem that way. Does it make sense?
So this is not any different than XDS with 1.0. So if you turn off, if Citadel isn't present, there's no, the communication from Envoy to Pilot is not secure. So yeah, Pilot to its configuration source is, but it's still not end-to-end secure. So it's along the same lines. If you want a secure control plane, which we recommend, you should probably use Citadel, and that's
Right.
independent. And that's independent from service-to-service traffic, and we should have the flags for that already.
Right, exactly. You need it for either service to service or control plane to data plane, or just among control plane themselves.
So you could say for the minimum install, control plane ideally is always secure, and incrementally you can add secure service-to-service traffic. But they're independent things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they just happen to both rely on Citadel to do that, provide that capability.
Yes.
So
Well,
you
the good thing is people can incrementally adopt. I mean, they could start without it, and then if they need it, they just install it. Install Citadel, and they enable the flag, do a Helm upgrade, then they will be there.
The flag is not for control plane only, right? So it's essential security flag is.
There's a flag for control plane security. Yeah.
But I thought it was actually controlled through the general enable security kind of flag, right? Is that? I thought that was like two-tiered flag thing.
Yeah, there's
Happy
a
to hear.
control. Yeah, there's a control plane security flag. I was just looking at this yesterday. And then there's also a security component you can enable, which would install Citadel for you. So you actually need both. If you need a control plane security, you need to enable security components to be true. And I believe there's also another global flag called Mutual TLS. That's the Mutual TLS among the services. So you can enable Mutual TLS enforcement for the service mesh, which we disable it by default because we want people to use authentication policy to gradually enable per destination or per namespace for Mutual TLS.
All right.
Just a quick question. Is this going to be part of 1.1?
These changes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are planning to do that because we have a few things that we want to lend, and it would be nice to have this before, like in 1.1, so that we have a clean slate to start with, so to speak. Is that a concern for you guys?
No. Just curious.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first change is basically the flag that you're using to start Gaily. Now you're changing to a settings file to config that.
We have a lot of settings, and that the number of settings has grown. So I think the problem is we want to collect all those in one spot, so it's easier to manage.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so yeah, the reason we joined is we're interested to contribute to this component. You guys probably see Aries already being contributing, so we're probably going to add 1 or 2 more people from our side to contribute to Gaily. So we're interested to see what are the changes, how can we help out, that type of thing.
We have a few other changes in flights just to publicize things. So we have the endpoints work Nathan is doing right now. So that's one of the other big changes. And Jason is doing the incremental MCP changes or the new version of MCP changes. So those are all in flight for 1.1. And we may do some like technical refactorings to accommodate some of these things within Gaily. Like so, the Gaily is, for example, the internal structure may not be amenable to accommodate some of these changes. So I have a couple of packs in flight to change these things. So if you have people interested in contributing, let them contact us, right? So we are happy to help. More hands are better.
Okay, great. Do you guys have issues that's already marked help wanted? I know Aries has been grabbing from those. Are those the right bucket to look at?
So help wanted ones are generally things that we simply don't have time to look at, right?
So not necessarily, okay.
Yeah, so it's great to have them fixed. It's just that there might be bigger fish to fry, right? So that's why it's better to just communicate. They can ping us in Slack.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Anything else to discuss? All right, then. See you.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jason Clark, new to the project. So I've been a fly on the wall in this meeting, just kind of consuming everything. I work with Lynn Sun, who is helping me to get onboarded. So just wanted to say hi.
Hey, welcome. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a really good call. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.